Climber. Today's guest kicked things off in his songwriting career a little late in life, but he made up time quickly with a 5-week #1. And you know what? That was over 20 years ago, but he's not done yet because he is still getting cuts on the biggest names in the industry. And he has some wisdom to share with us today from his newly released autobiography. So I'm excited to share this one with you. It's a lot of good stuff. Stick around, listen up. Johnny, do that thing.
Welcome to the C.L.I.M.B. This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create that all-important leverage in the music business. Guys, you get to do it yourself. That's the beauty of it. You don't need anybody's permission, but you do got to do it yourself, and you have to do it well. And when you do it yourself and you do it well, you create leverage, and then everybody comes out of the woodwork wanting to work with you. That's how you win in today's music business. That's what this podcast is all about. That's why we named it The C.L.I.M.B, C.L.I.M.B, creating leverage in the music business. That's some fancy, mighty fine rhyming and a writing from my good friend, Mr. Brent Baxter, who is a hit songwriter with cuts by Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady A, Joe Nichols. Got #1s in Southern Gospel, top 10s in Texas, top 10s in Australia. He's worldwide, not nationwide, worldwide, y'all. And why you care? Because he helps songwriters like you every single day. It's what he lives for. He wants to help you become a pro by revealing how you write like a pro, do business like a pro, and on the regular, he exercises his relationships and helps them make it to be your relationships. He introduces you to the pros. You can find Brent very easily at songwritingpro.com.
And I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns Daredevil Production. They're breaking artists digitally by identifying new fans through data. Yeah, it's complicated, but Johnny, thankfully, is smart. If you're an artist looking to increase your streams, blow up your video views, sell more live show tickets, and get discovered by new fans, TV, and music industry pros, then Daredevil Production can help. Daredevil has worked with multi-platinum artists like Colin Ray, Tracy Lawrence, Ty Herndon, and Andy Griggs, just to name a few. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That is production, singular, no S, and there is no S because there is no other. Johnny D.
What's happening, man? What's happening?
Woo! So it's fun. It's actually, friend of the show, Bill O'Hanlon, was like, "Hey, a buddy of mine has a new book out. You want to?" You know, of course, Bill knows everybody.
Bill so he onto him.
Yes, which already our guest today I've written with years ago. Actually, gotten a little bit of indie cuts with, but we hadn't connected in a while, so it was fun to have an excuse to reach out to today's guest, which we're going to get to in a moment, and reconnect, read his book, find out way more than I ever found out in a 3-hour, 4-hour writing session, and a lot of goodness here for songwriters, indie artists, industry people, a lot of good stuff. So I'm excited to dive into this one.
Awesome. Well, let's make it happen. Let's just get into it, man. Like I can't wait to get schooled, get learned.
All right, let's go. Today's guest is a songwriter with cuts and hits, including Toby Keith's My List, which was a #1 single on country radio back in 2002. He also wrote Love Like Crazy for Lee Brice, a hit which broke a record established by Eddie Arnold for the longest chart run in the history of the Hot Country Songs chart. Not only that, he also wrote Give It All We Got Tonight, which became the #1, number 60 for country legend George Strait. That's the 60th #1 for George Strait. His song All I Ask For Anymore, recorded by Trace Adkins, was nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Country Song in 2010. Also, he has a song on the new Kenny Chesney record called One More Sunset. He has songs coming out on Chris Stapleton and Strait and others. But he doesn't just write great songs. He also recently released an autobiography called Going Crazy, Left Foot, Right Foot, Breathe. It's a good read, and we're going to talk about it today. Tim James, welcome to The Climb.
Welcome.
Thank you, boys. I appreciate you guys having me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you for saying yes, sir.
Heck yeah, it's an easy yes.
Well, thank you. That's a heck of an autobiography. I would add to that Tim and I have written one song together. It's been cut a couple times on Itty Bitty Artist, but didn't make the bio. But it's been that one song has been cut a couple times.
Hey, a cut is a cut.
You know? Cut is a cut, baby. It's streams of pennies, right? Or micro pennies, as they are these days. But So, dude, you got
What was the name of that song?
it's called, It Does. It's called
Okay,
It
It's a good
Does.
song,
Country
man. It's a
faith
really
kinda thing. Yeah. So,
cool.
pitched it around a little bit, got some faith country artists that have cut it and stuff. So, anyway, it's kinda fun every once in a while that one pops back up. So, but, we'll talk about the ones that people know, I guess, a little bit more today. So, Tim, so your book you have out now is called Going Crazy, and it's your autobiography. And so, what prompted you to write the sucker in the first place? I'd hold it up, but I read it on Kindle, so I'll hold my phone up. There we go.
right.
For those of you
Well,
on YouTube.
look, hey,
There we
Hey,
go.
there we go.
Hey,
far
Boy
be
Scout,
far
Boy
be it
Scout.
for me to advertise.
Exactly.
Always prepared.
Yeah, man. I actually played a show at the Bluebird about 8 years ago,
Mhm.
and this girl was there, and she said, "That's the craziest story I've ever heard." Because I'm basically telling her the story. I grew up in Murfreesboro. I'm obviously a stone's throw from Nashville, but
Mhm.
in those days, I just didn't really get into country music. I liked singer songwriters. I like more like James Taylor, Fogelberg, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But as I was telling the story that night about having gotten kicked out of one college, which is true, and flunked out of MTSU. Like MTSU is not the Harvard of the South, but I flunked out, and I had never been on a plane, and got on a plane and went to LA, and was going to stay 6 months and stayed 12 years. So there's just, the book started when I told that story, and this lady said, "You should write that. You're a writer." And I thought, yeah, nobody's going to give a rip about my little story. Uh, and then I just started, man. And, it's like anybody else would say, work begets work. So
Mhm.
the more I wrote, and then finally I got to a place where this is not bad. And I was super, and you've read it, but I was very apprehensive about letting anybody read it
Yeah.
because I thought this is a little too personal. But the lady that the editor in New York said, "That's the part about it I love. It's so raw. It not
Mhm.
only talks about the music business stories, but it talks about my personal life, which has not been pretty."
Hence the
Is
title.
anybody's really pretty?
Exactly,
The
exactly.
only thing that separates the people who are willing to talk about it.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. That's
So God
exactly
bless
right.
you for that, man, because that's huge. I think that's huge. Hey, quick question. It just occurs to me. I mean, you're a huge hit songwriter. You're comfortable in daring to suck in a songwriting room,
Yeah.
right? Uh, what was the experience like for you writing a book? I mean, yeah, you're a writer, but all of a sudden it's different, right? Was it different? How did you feel about it?
Yeah,
Like, just
it was, it was, I guess it was cathartic if I had to say, because I started when things were wonderful, man. I just had Straight's last number one. Um, my ex-wife she was a basketball coach, and her team won the state title. We built a new house. Um, and then, as Eddie Murphy said, she's gonna get half. But
I want everybody.
Yeah.
but things were great. If I'm being transparent, like things were great in my world. I was like, man, I'm getting hit songs. As Steve Bogart would say, every time I get a hit, I go, "Fooled him again."
Yeah.
And for me, it was getting hits, and I was like, man, this is fantastic. And I had started it again when things were at their height, and it was just wonderful. And then my second Mulligan wife,
Yeah.
um, she decided she wanted out, and so it covers all of the it runs the gamut of emotions, man. It's like, I mean, you read it. It's like, man,
Mhm.
things are great, and I moved to LA, and I had some stuff go on in LA that wasn't necessarily pretty, but nonetheless, I came back here. When I started the book, things were wonderful,
Yeah.
but I guess that's what's somewhat attractive, if anything is about it, is that it definitely details me going, wow, this is now, you go through a divorce, and it's like, it's not a fun thing. So
Mhm.
it sort of ropes in my songwriting career along with
Mhm.
my personal life and trials and tribulations.
Was it uh, I guess clarifying the question, like, write about what you know. When you're in a songwriting room, there's probably a million songs that you've written about something that was going on with you that day, right? Or that week or that month. And you wear your heart on your sleeve and you're vulnerable in that room. Was it was there any difference in the vulnerability that you felt
I,
like
I would
with the book
I would
versus the
add to this,
song?
like, you write a song, if there's something really, like, vulnerable, you can always go, "Oh, that was my co-writer."
Right.
You have plausible deniability.
Plausible.
Oh, that's a
No,
good point.
baby. No, baby, that was my co-writer who was looking at some other girl. That
I
was
did
so and
not
so.
write
That
that
wasn't that
line.
was
I
his
did not.
line.
That wasn't me, but I heard the song, but that wasn't me. But you're one of the right, but that wasn't me.
It wasn't me, right?
Yeah.
Did
Uh,
it feel any different? Like was it more uh scary or
yeah, definitely. Because, in a song, I mean, if you're writing, I don't know, in today's world, to be honest, if you're writing a commercial song, it doesn't have anything to do with you personally. It's got more to do with, what jeans she's wearing, what song she
Mhm,
listens to, what whiskey drink she's having. So, which is not necessarily my jam, but
mhm,
the the book was, dude, I mean, frightening would be the word when I decided I'm actually going to put this out there because I have two kids.
mhm.
Um, and they're 19 and 15, which means my second Mulligan wife was younger than me. She was 22, but it's Murfreesboro. No,
things are
no,
different down there?
she was younger than. I'm kidding out there, folks. Don't get all. She was a little younger, so I have younger daughters. They're great. I love my kids, but yeah, man, you go through periods where you're like, I don't know about this job, and if you're not, I think that I say this all the time. As creatives, we need validation to some
Mhm,
degree. If you're doing this, and you're not getting any cuts, whether you're getting them on Indie Acts or whether you're getting them on Kenny Chesney, you need validation, or I do. I need somebody going, you're still good at this. And as a
mhm,
Yeah.
result of being good at it, you get something tangible, AKA a cut in our case. So yeah, man, it was when I started writing it, and then the lady agreed to publish it and edit it, which it was kind of self-published with a lady in New York named Beth Warner. But dude, I mean, it was like I said, my own mom read it, was like, she cried. She was like, I
mhm.
didn't know that you had gone through so much hurt and pain. Um, and at the same time, I told you, she said, I just didn't know you so wild.
Well,
There's some
eh,
things
well
you don't.
Man, it was definitely there were definitely very moving parts of it for sure, and, like, I, like, barely know you because 'cause we've written, like, once together and haven't bumped into each other a whole lot, so, like, all right, a little bit of, been in the room with you, but, like, didn't know you. Now I feel like I know you for sure, and, uh, for good or bad. No, it's all good, and
Right.
and also, man, one thing I found interesting about your story, we have some parallels. You went to Red Lobster for your first number one. Uh, I went to Red Lobster when I got my first, like, major cut, all you can eat shrimp, which is probably why they're going bankrupt now, actually, it's in the news. We probably did that. But also, I moved to Nashville when I was 27, and you started the music thing, I think in your early 30s or so. You got a little bit of a late start compared to a lot of the people in the business. What kind of encouragement would you have? Because obviously, that did not stop you from having just a killer career. What advice may you have or encouragement for people that are a little bit of a later start? They're not starting at 16 years old or whatever.
Man, I would say soak it up like a sponge. Like when I got here, um, I couldn't get arrested just like
Mhm.
everybody else.
Yeah.
And I was making trips back. I mean, I did get arrested, but that's a whole nother story.
That's a different
I,
thing.
I was making trips back.
Metaphorically, I couldn't get arrested. Literally, I sure could.
It's in the book, folks. But
It's yeah.
my mom said that the other night, Brent. She said my mom was saying about something because she's 86, and she was talking about, I've got to leave somebody's name, and it had to do with legal paperwork. And she said to my other brother, she was like, I guess I'll leave, put your name on it, Mark, because Tim has a record.
You're in this pile over here now.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I would say, for me, man, I was very diligent about um, getting in rooms with people And it was difficult, as you know, like hit writers want to write with hit writers. And if
Amen.
you have a publishing deal and somebody else doesn't have a publishing deal, then are they pitching the song? Is somebody working the song on their end?
Mhm.
So all of that, I was super lucky that I got to write with some guys that were hit writers. And I took my lumps there too, dude. I mean, they would, I wrote with Mike Reed once after I had
Mm.
my list. And Mike Reed was, I mean, I looked up to the guy because of sports, if nothing else. He was an
Oh,
all
yeah.
pro defense. So we kind of started writing something, and he was like, yeah, I don't know about that. And I just, after I'd had a number one song, I said, what's the secret to this thing? And he looked at me like he was going to, take me out like a quarterback. And he said, the key is to show up for work. And everybody says that. But if a guy like that says it, I just said, that's what I'm going to do. So that's kind of what I did. Again, I was super lucky in the sense that my first pub deal, I was 37 years old.
Mm.
And then it was with Hayes Street Music. It was Don Schlitz's company. After a year and a half, they decided they were going to close. They
Mhm.
just said, Don said, I just don't want to do this anymore. And I was like, oh, great. So I'm out of a job now at 39,
Yeah.
painting houses. And I just had a little talk with the man upstairs. And I was like, look, man, something's got to break here, because I didn't come back from California to paint houses.
Mhm.
And I had worked and worked and written and written and written. And finally, um, I was out of work, and I got signed to a company. Rob Hendon signed me to a very small pub deal with Toby Keith and TK Kimbrell. And then Toby came in and said, man, I'm going to cut a song from the catalog. And the rest of it, from there, it's like, that's a good entry into the music business. Like, oh, a
Yeah.
5-week number one. So
Yeah. That is not a bad first single by any
it is.
means.
When did you first get the itch? I feel like um I feel like you can't. I was having this conversation in Denmark with Tim Nichols, and I just feel like you can't be you can't make a difference in this business as much as it takes to get where you want to be. If you chose music, like music had to choose you.
Mhm.
So, like, when did you first get the itch? When did you like realize that it chose you? And then, what took you so long? The world's a better place when you're in Nashville, bro. Like, what happened?
Uh, man, well, I don't think really, Johnny. I don't think I realized it until later. The way I always say it is, when I lived in LA, I decided to put a band together. I'd never been on stage, and I said, I'm going to put a band together. And my friend said, dude, I mean, you're out of your mind. And I was like, yeah, I'm going crazy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I put a band together, and I went up on stage, and we played Liza Jane. Of course, talking about 20 something, probably 30 years ago. We
Mhm.
played Liza Jane, and I got to the first note, the first line. I couldn't do it. I just went, and I was like, I was so eat up with stage fright. But then I kind of got my stuff together. And then once I did it, man, I realized, like, at the end of the night, when people are just, and you go,
Yeah.
some of my friends are like, do you like that? I'm like, who doesn't like adoration and applause? And so that's kind of when it hit me. It's like a drug. And
Mhm.
I still do a ton of like songwriter shows. But yeah, man, then I think, I can only give you examples. That was my example in terms of performing. I was, after my list, about 2 years after my list, I was like, man, I haven't had a cut, and I haven't had a single, and I don't know what the heck I'm going to do. And I was like, screw it. I'm going into real estate. I literally
Mhm.
was like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to fight the fight. And I went in the grocery store, and I was looking at the chicken legs. No, I mean, I was shopping, and I heard this like pop song on the radio. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, that would make a cool country song. And I'm like recording it. And 10 minutes before that, I'd said, I hate this business. I hate you. I want out. I hate this. It's driving me nuts. And then I get in the car, and I'm singing. All of a sudden I went, this is what I do. I might as well
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
You don't have a choice. Yeah.
have a
So I'm saying music chose you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's far better vocations you could have gotten into.
Yeah. I mean, if they
but
talk about
but
the John was talking about the itch. Well, it might start as an itch, but really, for those of us, it's a full-blown infection. It's
Yeah.
terminal. It's
I
not
mean,
going
literally, the
away.
alternative is climbing a tower with a gun and being on the 6 o'clock news. You know,
Right.
like,
It is.
yeah.
It's just it's an addiction. It's an effect. I've tried dumping peroxide on it, Brent. That doesn't help either. I, I've tried, like I said, at times, and again, man, if I'm being honest with you, which is what this, I think this book is why people like it, is 3 years. I'm signed to a publisher, but
Mm.
3 years ago, the last hit I had, Stapleton put out a song of ours called Either Way
Yeah.
about 6 years ago. Great song. I love the song.
Yeah,
Leanne
really
Young cut it,
cool.
Mhm.
Stapleton cut it. It was the only single he put out for the most part that didn't go number one.
Yeah.
And it was, the rumor was that the people at radio were like, dude, this song is at the heat of summer and it's about people divorcing. I mean, we're not going to
Mhm.
play that. So at some point, I began to not just doubt the business, but doubt my ability. Again, it goes back to like, we need validation.
Yeah.
Well, I was signed to a publishing company, but I thought, man, I can't do that. I don't want to do, again, I was back in that same place where I was like, okay, I've had some success. I'm very grateful for it. But I sort of stayed the course. And a guy named Tim Medlin, who co owns Porchlight, Tim just said, look, dude, I'll keep you. And then in a 4 month period last year, I went from having one cut in the last 3 years on a band called Neon Union
Mhm.
to getting a Chesney. I actually got one on the new Chesney record, one on the new Stapleton record, and George Strait finished a project, and I can say it because they told me I could. What's that? I can't say it. They George Strait's putting out a new record, and I've got a duet on there with Stapleton. And what I would
Awesome.
say, going back to maybe your earlier question, is like, young people, write the songs to the best of your ability. The song I got on Stapleton's record that he sang yesterday with Jennifer Hudson and Warren Treaty on Jennifer Hudson's show is a 15-year-old song.
Yeah.
And the one straight cut is a 15-year-old song. So what I've been saying to my peers is like, my buddies they're all mega hit songwriters, but I'm like, this idea of, and stop me if I'm rambling, but this idea of continuing to go write another song, show up,
Mhm.
I get that to some degree, but go back. Like
Yes.
if you're an artist and you want hit songs, George Strait, living proof. I mean, he cut two songs. My buddy Kendall Marvel got one. I know it's 10 or 12 years old. Mine is 15 years old. So yeah, man, keep doing it. You never know when something will come. It could be our song
Mhm.
that somebody happens to dig up and then somebody plays it for somebody else and you go, whoa,
Yeah. I
do
mean,
that.
Hey,
I
so
I think there's so much wisdom in that for, and there's a lot in your book too where you take charge of your career. You don't just wait for your publisher to do everything because your publishers kept dropping like flies in the book. The companies kept closing, but which is interesting. Uh,
his publishing companies are like the drummers from Spinal Tap. They just
Right.
keep
exactly. Yes. But you took the reins, and also I want to encourage writers to, and this is something I try to do is go back. I was, you know, my one our second car, our old one that I drive, it still has a CD player in it, which is awesome. So I ran across a bunch of old comps from like just demos, old stuff, 10 years old or whatever. I'm like, I'm putting those in and I'm going to listen to these as I drive around because I try to stay current on the old stuff too. And there's one I ran across like, dadgum, I just had a conversation with an A&R guy the other day who really liked this kind of thing. I need to send him this song. And I sent it to him. He's
Yeah.
like, dadgum, that's spot on. I'm playing it for Doug Johnson tomorrow or on Tuesday or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a 10, 12-year-old song. We'll see what happens with it. But the point is like, you need to stay up on your old stuff too. So I just want to
Yeah.
stick a pin in
I
what
agree
you
with you.
said.
So
But
hey, let me ask a quick question. So exactly how did the the George Strait 15-year-old song of yours happen? Like, did you hear that he was at a pitch meeting and you went through your catalog and thought, well, man, this is old, but this is like perfect for George Strait? Or I mean, how did it come to be? Like, what was exactly the hustle that you did to bring that up to the top? I'm just curious.
yeah, man, I didn't do anything. There is a guy that is working Stapleton's back catalog, and he is in that circle. And he apparently dug that song out. Again, it's random. They sent me an email and they were like, "Are you on a song called Honky Tonk Hall of Fame?" And I was like, "Don't recall it. Don't think so." And then they said, "Well, George Strait's cutting it. We need to get the pub info." And I was like, "What?" So I literally had to call like BMG and Warner Chappell and say, "Okay, who owns the rights to the song?" I finally found it. But no, to your question, a guy that works Chris's back catalog played it. They played it, and Stapleton showed up, and then they did it as I saw Tony Brown, and he was like, "We did it as a duet." Um, and I was like, "Well, thank you, Elvis."
Yeah.
Um, but so you never know. That's what I mean. It's 15 years old. Somebody digs it up and plays it, and you go, "Holy cow, man!" I mean, if it
Yeah, catalog counts, man.
it
Just,
does, catalog
keep working the craft and don't stop. But yeah, I think there's so many. I run into so many when not so much now, but when I was doing amateur songwriter demos, and it was like, well, I'm gonna just see what happens with these first three, and I'm like, you've already lost before you got started. It's not
Mhm.
about it's not about the outcome. It's about the craft.
Right?
Yeah.
The outcome is a byproduct of the
Yeah.
pursuit of the craft,
And
but
I agree with that. I'm thinking really in my case, man. I mean, I've been super blessed and super lucky. Chris was one of the first people, or I was one of the first people Chris wrote with. And I
wow.
always tell the story too. Like we wrote a song, and he's so laid back, and we became really good friends at one time. But we'd write a song, and he'd be over there like, "Someone say, someone else," and I'd be like, "Okay, I don't know what that is, but I like it." And
Yeah.
so we wrote this song. We went and when we wrote it, he sang the work tape, but the work tape was, like I said, it was kind of like, "Songs on a mill song," and then we go in the studio, they track it, and I, at the time was having some hits, and I was like, "Well, you want me to sing it or do you want to sing it?" And he said, "Well, I'll give it a shot." And I was like, "Yeah, go ahead, big fella."
Yeah.
And he goes in there and starts singing. I was like, "What in the world is that?
He
And
uncorked it.
where did
Yeah.
that come from?" And the people, the musicians, dude, in the studio were just kind of going, he was brand new. So, and for me, I've been very lucky to have written songs with him because he could sing the phone book, let's face it. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
you dig up these old songs and send them to people, and again, I'm just being honest, a Stapleton song is going to get a listen.
Yeah.
Even in today's world, like if I send in our song
Mhm.
to, they may listen to it, they may not. If it's
Right.
got his name on it and his vocal, you're going to get a listen. So,
And that is part of where that success breeds success because, it all comes down to know, like, and trust, and I tell people all the time that A&R people, whether it's Tony Brown, George's Camp, whoever, they get more songs coming in that they have time to listen to. They just can't listen to all of them. And so they're
yeah,
gonna start with sources that they know, like, and trust, and one of those would be, like,
that's right.
the name of the songwriter on there or the name of the person who sent the email if it's coming from,
Right.
a killer publisher that, if it's coming from Mike Molinar or someone, they're gonna be like, "Oh, I'm gonna open this because he has a great track record," or, "I know him." If it says Chris Stapleton on the writer's credit, they'll be like, "Well, that's proven commodity," or your name or whatever, and if it's an unknown writer, it's just an uphill battle, maybe just as good, but they may never know because they might not hear it. Which is actually why I
Right.
tell people they need to really if they're unknown, especially give a lot of thought to their song titles, because then it's left to the song title to make them go, "Huh, I wonder what that is."
Yeah.
You know,
I,
Man,
which is
okay,
not
bro,
easy
I
either.
wanna make sure all the climbers, like, picked up on what you just heard. So, he's the first guy to write with Chris Stapleton, right?
Mhm.
Before Chris Stapleton was an artist, he was a writer, and he was
Yeah.
a great writer, a well-known writer, but also, he was there at the moment where he's like, "Well, you want me to sing it for you, buddy, well, I guess I could give it a shot." Like, what the
Yeah.
hell? Everybody's like, "What?"
yeah.
Everybody has that moment, you
Right.
know,
Well,
where you just gotta go for it, and then look what happened.
I felt that was just like a size 11 shoe right in the mouth with some salt. Like I was like, "Yeah, I'll sing it, dude." And then he was like, "No, I think I got it." Like, dang, man, go ahead.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think some of that again is to your point, Brent. It's like you show up for work, and
Mhm.
And Chris and I started writing songs years and years ago. We probably wrote 50 songs, but we probably got 7 of them cut.
Yeah.
And I'm still, I mean, now that I've got 2 with him, the one on his current album called Loving You on My Mind, and then the other one is on the new Straight album. It's like, again, catalog has value.
Catalogs have Cadillacs, man. Catalogs have Cadillacs. If
That's
you're,
it.
if you know what you're doing, you got to search for them. You can't forget about them and let them rust out. So, yeah, I
That's
think that's
it.
a great point. One thing I thought was interesting just to talk about is the stuff in the business that we can't control. We can control what we can. So go back, look for the Cadillacs in the catalog, that sort of thing. But with my list for Toby Keith, in the book, you detail how that was not supposed to be a single. But then 9/11 happened and the mood of the
Right.
country changed. And it became, like you said, a 5-week number one. Obviously, you had, that wasn't supposed to be a single. You did your job. But how much of that kind of stuff is just out of our control?
I would say 100% of it. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, I'm kind of battling that now. Like,
Mhm.
once you get cuts, you're back in the singles game, as you and I were kind of talking about. So, I've got one on Chesney's record, and they were like, "Man, it's going to be the next single." You hear all that talk.
Yeah.
But as far as that goes, yeah, man, I all you can do is write the song. So we wrote the song, we turned it in. Toby said, "Yeah, man, I'm going to cut that song," and then he put out 2 singles off that album, which the first one was "I'm Just Talking About Tonight,"
Mhm.
and the second one was "I Want to Talk About Me."
Mm.
And so, Borchetta, who was head of promotions at DreamWorks at the time, I think he looked at those 2 songs, and he was great. He wrote the forward to my book, and the guy knew he was sick. He still wrote it, just a stand-up guy. But he had his own persona, which was, "I'm not talking about logging down forever,"
Yeah.
And so when he cut that song, and then they turned in the record, and then 9/11 happened. And Borchetta just said, "Man, if you want to put out a song that's going to resonate with people at this particular time, put out this song." And yeah, he put it out, and went to number one, stayed there for 5 weeks. So I went from selling Robitussin to drinking whiskey.
Nice. But
And good
it's
whiskey too.
yeah, and that's the point. It's like show up, do the work, and you create. Someone said, the more work I do, I create more surface area for luck to land on.
That's it.
It's
Yeah.
like I'm just
Yeah.
creating surface area that you hope the little luck drops hit. But
Mathematically, it's a numbers game.
Yeah.
You've got a far better chance of getting a cut out of 100 songs than you do out of 1,
There's no
you
doubt.
know?
Now, the flip side of that to me is in today's world, like we've been so geared to go write a
Mhm.
song every day. And Bob McDill and one of the
Oh,
guys I started with was a guy named Kerry Kurt Phillips. And Kerry Kurt was a fantastic writer, had probably 10 number ones. He got out of the game, but he was the same way. It took 5 or 6 sessions to write a song
mhm.
because in his mind, he'd rather get one great one than
Mhm.
he would, but I do think you've got to, if you throw enough stuff in the top of the filter, at the bottom, something good comes out. So
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
to throw some stuff in there.
Mhm.
Yeah. And no matter what, the more stuff you throw at the top of the filter, the better you get
Yeah,
at the
that
gig.
part I agree with for sure.
You know what I mean? The better you get. And what do you think? I, I'll take off the personal guardrails here. And answer how you choose whether it's professionally or personally. But after writing this book, and where you had to reflect on and really look at yourself under this lens as you assembled the material in this book, what do you think the biggest lesson is that you learned?
That I'm an absolute lunatic. Uh, I would say that I don't know that I could blend those two together. I would say professionally, what I've learned is what we just finished talking about, which
Mhm,
is the whole book. Actually, if I did intertwine them, it's about perseverance.
Mhm.
You know, when I moved to LA, the nutshell version is I got jumped which Brent read by
Mhm.
a gang, a full-on, gang. And they
Wow.
hit me with a steel pipe and split my head open. I had 14 stitches across my head. I had my jaw wired shut for 20 weeks.
Oh,
I
wow.
had 6 stitches here. I mean, my jaw was shattered because they hit me twice. So, but yet and again, my parents at the time, I came home, I had braces on my teeth because my jaw was wired shut. I looked like a bad C movie character. And, I was back home for, I think, like 3 months until I got the braces off. And then I said to my parents, I'm going back. And my parents were like, what in the world is wrong with you? Why would you go out there, you get the crap beat out of you,
Yeah.
and you're going back? And I said, I will not let somebody else dictate the terms on which I come and go. And
Yeah.
so the same, when I came back here and I played some songs for a guy, and I know he's passed away, but Charlie Monk was the mayor of Music Row, who was around forever, and he was running A Cup Rose.
Mhm.
And I went in and played him some songs, and I was, dressed in like it was the 80s, dude, and I had on white jeans that were too tight, looked like I was smuggling olives into the country, and like a vest and all this other crap, and with a mullet. And so, long story short, I played him my songs, and dude, he fast forwarded through every one of them, and then he
Yeah.
flipped around in his chair, and he says, "It's June, and these are three. How many songs have you written this year?" And I was like, "Those three." And he said, "Okay, in the room down the hall, I've got Tom Knobloch, uh, Tom Schuyler, and Fred Knobloch,
Yeah.
and it's June, and they're probably turning their 60th today." To your point, so that's when I went, and he challenged me. He was like, "Go back to L.A., write me 100 songs. You've heard this, and then call me." Well, I went back and wrote about 70, and then
Mhm.
I came back and called him. So the whole thing, whether it's personally, professionally, is about perseverance, and that's what the book is about. I've been through my own set of stuff, um, but dude, every morning I get up and I still left foot, right foot, breathe. I go, you know what? I'm lucky to be here. I lost my older brother 2 years ago, and it's like, man. And
Mm.
today I'm
Mm.
going to write a song today. It's like I still love to do. I don't love the business of the business as much as I
Right.
used to, but I still love create. I mean, I'm going today. I don't even know who I'm writing with today. The publisher set it up. I'm going to show up and just, like, hey, how are you? It could be Kev Mo, or I don't have any idea. So, yeah, I think, the things that I would say again, professionally, you got to persevere. I had my first number one song at 40.
Yeah.
I'm now not
That's
40.
awesome.
And in the last 3 years, the last 4 months, I've gotten cuts on three of the biggest acts in the business. You just never know.
I
Yep.
love that. And that's why
Perseverance.
you keep showing up.
That's it. I gotta, matter of fact, I've got the itch today, so I got to shower and go to work.
You keep trying to shower, but it doesn't get rid of the
It
itch.
just doesn't really
Is there a shop for that? What
You're right.
happens?
Well,
Uh,
Tim, man, this is so good. The book again is called "Going Crazy: Left Foot, Right Foot, Breathe." It's available. I got mine on Kindle. It's on Amazon. It's in all the places. Right? Where can people find you? Find the book. Keep up with what you're doing. All that
yeah, man.
all that good
Like you
stuff.
say, it's available on Amazon. My website is thetimjames.com. I did not come up with that because it sounds so cheesy. Uh, but honestly, there's another Tim James. He's written a bunch of pop, Miley Cyrus stuff.
Oh, cool.
So I had to go. Well, I mean, I get some of his ASCAP checks,
I was
but
about to ask you that. Like, does it get some IPI mixed up a little bit? Yeah.
I'm kidding, dude.
There's
I
another Tim James that's an author too.
Right, right. I hope to get
Yeah,
some of his money.
yeah.
But yeah, you can buy the book on Amazon. My website is thetimjames.com. You can buy it on that. I'm hoping, to get it in some bookstores. I don't know. It's again, dude, I don't know. It's just like starting writing songs at 30 something. I don't really
Mhm.
know anything about the book world. I'm just
Yeah.
learning as I go and thanking people like you for helping me out.
Heck yeah. Yeah. So I encourage everyone to
Well,
check
there
it
you
out.
go.
There's life lessons in there. There's definitely a lot of music business wisdom in there for, our audience, against singers, songwriters, indie artists, industry people. Definitely encourage them to check that out. I had a bunch of stuff highlighted that we didn't get a chance to get to today. But that's all right. It's good stuff. People can go check it out for themselves.
Man, I appreciate that.
So yeah, it's good for humans just to read it too.
It is,
you know?
yeah. Well, I heard a thing one time that like kids that read like stories just tend to have more empathy for people than others, the people that don't, because they get to know characters, fictional or real, through the pages of a book. They get to know people and kind of builds in more empathy because they've
Right.
walked in more people's shoes. I thought, huh, that's interesting. So anyway, so get your empathy on.
Awesome.
Read Tim's new book.
Exactly.
There you go. Well, hey, Tim, real quick, what can you shout out your social media so our people can hook up with you there, follow you there?
Yeah, my Instagram is at TimothyJames2182, and Facebook is just Tim James. And honestly, those are about the only two I do.
Okay, cool.
Gotcha.
Cool,
We'll
cool,
put them in the show notes as well.
Other
Well,
than,
thank you again for saying yes, man, and for writing this book. I think it takes a lot of it takes stones to come out. And
Really
Well,
takes
that's-
some
yeah, that's
olives.
what I see.
It really takes
It
some
it
olives.
takes some olives. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes some olives in my case. But yeah, when I put it out there, dude, I was like, yeah, it's crazy. And my Twitter handle is at Brent Baxter. No, that's my Tinder. That's my Tinder.
That's right.
All right,
Right on, guys.
I appreciate
Well, on that note, that takes us to the end of another Killer Climb episode. You guys, this podcast exists because we want you to win, so keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.